welcome to another episode of Shooting
the Shit with Rachel
and Neal Young. So we're talking all things real estate photography business growth, mindset, and getting it done. Here come your favorite true entrepreneurs, Rachel and Neal Young, shooting the shit.
I have a ferret on the podcast. Like if we're kind of in a slump, like what kind of things do you do?
Talking about a boob light.
Straddling a power line.
Nice photo.
Ooh, I need that.
I'm like red right now because I'm embarrassed. I go like this. I love it.
Come in.
Sure, use your podcast voice.
You know, over here, I'm kidding out.
Drone's like flipping to the ground.
That's a great callback.
Chit-chatting.
Is that what you call that? Hey!
This episode is brought to you by my admin. Well, HD Photo Hub, which is basically like having an admin.
That's right. And it's not just a delivery platform. It's a powerhouse designed to make your work shine. From stunning teaser videos and social media reels to custom property websites and polished printable flyers, HD Photo Hub automates it all so you can focus on what matters, growing your business.
That's right.
Hello. Thank you for joining us today. We are going to talk about something that I think all of us have encountered in this business, which is demanding clients.
Dun, dun, dun.
We both have a lot of examples of these and how we've handled it. And we're just going to riff on this and talk about it. And hopefully we can help you guys with how to handle some of these situations that arise.
Many lessons learned.
Yes, right.
Yeah,
A big one is patience. Right? Patience is a virtue.
Oh, yeah. So, the first, so in a lot of these are like, they can be all over the place. They can be demanding out of the blue. They can be demanding from the first second you ever talk to them. But I will say one of the things right off the bat is, especially when you get a text message that's something super demanding or super annoying and you're just like, don't answer that one right away. Just sit on it for a few minutes at least before you go and respond, because later you kind of like, I've had a lot of times where I like somebody nitpicks something and you're just like so annoyed and you want to say like, well, if and it's like 10 minutes later you're like, okay, I have a better way to respond.
Yeah. Sometimes waiting can be your best friend for sure. And a lot of us, I think when we get that bad feedback from a client or something that we know it's out of our control, or it was actually their fault because the house wasn't ready, it's really hard to not snap back with a defense, because it's not your fault or there is a justified reason why. But if you snap back being defensive, it's not providing good customer service. It's not going to rub them the right way. So
yeah, and you might be right, but it isn't going to help you move your business forward, and it's not going to help you with your relationships, and all it's going to do is start to burn a bridge. Even if you don't ever want to work with that client again, all it does is leave an opportunity for them to complain about you to someone else.
Yes, and this is a small network. So your reputation is everything. You need to guard it with your life. So even if you cannot stand this client, you are like pulling your hair out, put a smile on the phone, or it should just get through it and you don't have to work with them again. Because there are some clients who just are not a good fit for your business, and that's totally fine. But if you can, I did hear a stat that said, if you have a client that something goes wrong on the shoot, and you make an effort to fix it, they will be more likely to hire you in the future because you fixed the problem, even if no problem even arose, because you fixed it. So it's also, there's a big aspect to this about being proactive. And I was just talking to someone about this, about how, we need to make sure that if there's a problem, was it house cleaning? Yeah, I was cleaning my house. So I have a house cleaner, right? And I just got a new company. I hired Molly Maid because I was just sick of the other ones. They did just a bad job. They'd start out really good and then they'd start missing stuff. And I'm like, really? They didn't even like dust towards the end. I'm like, they're fired. So I got Molly Maid. They're more expensive. I'm like, I don't care. They do everything. I'm just going to hire a big company. They're bound to be good, right? Well, they missed this whole section on the floor. And like the main traffic area, they didn't mop it. And like my dog comes in with wet paws, so you can see it on the floor, like the window's right there, so the sun shines on it. So it's really a noticeable spot, right? So I text them and I'm like, hey, I took a picture and sent it. I'm like, you missed this spot on the floor. And she wrote back, she said, oh, the cleaner said that the dog was laying there and wouldn't move. And I'm like, okay, well, first off, the dog is like the nicest dog. And if you walk up to her, she's trained to get out of your way. Like she moves. Like that's BS. And two, like tell her to move. Say, come here, puppy. There's dog treats on the counter. Like figure it out. But the point being, like, even though she didn't even figure it out, she didn't communicate that to her supervisor to communicate it to me. I wouldn't have been as annoyed or frustrated or upset with the cleaning crew had she stepped up and said, hey, just so you know, the dog wouldn't move from this spot, so I couldn't mop this area. Instead, I went on a rampage and found 5 other things that they missed and sent them text messages on all those things because I was mad and set off. And I was like, oh, you don't understand how many cleaners we've been through with our Airbnb and how many things have been missed that like clearly should not be missed. So I'm like hypersensitive to this and a little anal about this. So it kind of it triggered me. Let's put it that way. These poor cleaners. But had they communicated prior to me
Yeah.
finding it, I would have been like, oh, no problem. I mean, they gave me a discount. They gave me $20 off, which is great, but
Yeah.
still.
Or yeah,
Anyways,
just so you know, this cleaner she's terrified of dogs. So is there anything if your dog gonna have a dog
right,
there?
right. Or like,
You
I can
know,
take the dog with me.
yeah.
Usually I'm there. I actually left. I let him in and then I left because I had to go to work. Like
Mhm.
if that was the case too, I can bring the dog with me or we can lock her in the
So
garage. Like there's options. Just communication is key, 100%.
what happened from that after you wigged out and gave a whole other bunch of details?
Yeah.
Are you still working with them, or you have a
Yes.
new cleaner?
Well, what's funny is we painted our living room this last weekend. And so you might remember my old podcast set up in my living room. The background was really blue. So it was blue with like a bunch of white trim and stuff. And that dark blue took us 2 coats of Kills primer and then 2 coats of paint to cover it. And it's still coming through in areas. I'm like,
Wow.
it's fine. We also put in new can lights. So I just adjusted the color temperature to be warmer so that it kind of counteracts the blue. One of the perks of being a photographer and understanding color, you can, manipulate the wall color with the temperature of your lights. But the other living room has like a big stairway. It's going to be nearly impossible to paint it. So we got a quote. So the guy came in to give us a quote and I was like, my husband knows his family and he heard that his wife is a house cleaner or just starting. And so we asked and she is. So she's coming over on Monday to give me a quote to clean my house. So,
There you
which
go.
it used to cost me like $165 to get my house cleaned. Then it went up to 185. And then now Molly Maid is 305.
Oh wow.
I know. So it's getting, and they only come twice a month, but that's a lot of money. I'm like, dude, I'd much rather pay like 200, not 300 a week every 2 weeks. But
I
it's
feel like you
worth it.
didn't answer my question though. Did they
Oh,
put you on the list of do not work with this crazy
oh,
person?
right. What happened? Well, no, they're not. No, they didn't. They handled it really well. So she texted me back and said that they could come back out to clean the house and clean that part. And I was like, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. I don't want to coordinate schedules. So I said, if you can just give me a discount, that would be great. So they did. And I
Mm,
said, just make sure it gets done on the next time. So they
right.
came and she said, okay, I'm the quality assurance manager. I'll be coming to the clean next week to make sure everything gets done right. And I'm like, wonderful. So she comes and they did everything. And she was like, okay, bye. And they leave. And I looked around and they didn't clean the dog food mat or the water mat for the cat water. They didn't clean, like I have this great thing that goes over, it's kind of a silicone mat that goes over my sink. It's like a strainer thing. And they clean the top of it, but not in between. So there's like white crust on it. They're just not, they don't care. There's like, I have one of those cup cleaners. You like push your cup down on it. It squirts water up into the cup to clean the inside. They have those at Starbucks. I found them on
Yep.
Amazon. I'm like, those are so cool. So we just installed one, but behind it splashes sometimes on the backsplash behind it. And there's like coffee splatters there. They didn't clean that stuff. It's like they just don't like the switch plates. They don't wipe down the switch plates like they're supposed to. It's all on their list of what they're supposed to clean, and they just don't do it every time. It's like they do it every other or every
Do they have
third or
like
fourth time.
do they do a checklist? Like I've never dealt with house cleaners. If you saw
Mhm.
my house, you'd know that was true. But
Mhm.
do they do a checklist like when you go to Meineke or whatever, and they're like, oh, we checked your oil, we checked your fluids, we checked your, tire pressure. Do they do that?
Not that I can see. That would be nice to have, honestly, because then I could like actually see what they did. And I'm
Hmm.
fine. Like they don't need to wipe down the switch plates every single time. But if I'm looking at them and they're visibly dirty, it's like, come on. But
Yeah.
I don't
But it
know.
is important to
Anyways.
consider this when you've got a team and you've got a bunch of shooters. If they're missing some of the things that you normally used to do,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, these could be the things, these could be the silent killers, like why your clients slowly start to dwindle away.
Right. Yes. And a lot of it comes down to home prep. The personality and the interaction that you have with the client, I've found is super important. I
Mm,
have one agent that I've worked for since the very beginning. She was one of my first clients. And she had a repeat client that she sold a house and I shot it, gosh, probably 5, 6 years ago. Right. And then one of my team members came back to shoot it because they were selling that house and moving again. And one of my members came to shoot it and the homeowner remembered me and said, "Wait, that's not Rachel. Where's Rachel?"
oh
So like
wow.
that homeowner from like 5 or 6 years ago remembers me.
Mm,
And Molly goes, "Oh
yeah,
no, this is her team. Like they shoot just like her. They're just as good." But people remember you. So
yeah,
just having, that time, taking the time to go the extra mile, like ask them the
yeah,
personal questions, kind of get to know them a little bit. Really, really care about your people goes a long ways with your
yeah.
clients and with your
Well, I
clients'
think,
client.
psst, sorry to interrupt. If you haven't heard, Rach and I are using Pixl CRM.
Pixl CRM isn't just another boring tool. It's basically your business's best friend. With
Mm,
Pixl CRM, you can automate your lead generation, follow-ups, client communication, and stay top of mind with email campaigns. And there's just so much more.
and if you want, you can try it out today. Just go to pixelcrm.com/STS, and you're going to get the first month of Pixl CRM free. I think you guys do this too, but one of the things that we do too when we walk in is we do a quick walk through the house.
Mhm.
And as we do that, we'll adjust little things, and our clients notice it. I know because they bring it up sometimes. I was with a client the other day, and she's like, when I set up the house now and I do some little adjustments, I'm always going like, well, what would Neil see here? Oh, and she like fixes something because I'll go through and just little things like, oh, that the little piece of toilet paper hanging down, or just toilet paper hanging down at all, like fix that, like little things, but just annoying things that I fix. And I think when you start like that, they actually notice you care. And
Right.
I think it's a little thing like that is a big differentiator in why they might use you again instead of somebody else who just literally walked in and started shooting without caring. Yeah.
Yes. What
So
kinds of things have you had? Because we're supposed to be talking about
I
demanding
know.
clients and we're getting off track here. We're talking about how to prevent this. Like preventative is number one, right? Like prevent
Yeah.
people from being pissed off. Obviously, like if photos are going to be late, let them know as soon as possible so they're not sitting around waiting, fuming when it's 5 minutes past and they still haven't gotten their
Yeah.
photos, right? Because they're waiting to go live. They're waiting to get this thing on the MLS. You are the last
Yeah.
step. So obviously preventative care, but like what are some of the things that you've had clients, what kind of demanding things have clients asked you to do? Or, what are some
So
examples from your business, Neil?
I had a new client that I was very excited about because they did a lot of real estate. This is when I was first getting going and I was trying to get away from still working half and half waiting tables. And the other half, doing shoots when I had them. So this was exciting to have this client. And first shoot we ever did, they just were like, every shot they were like, oh, why are the lights so bright? Why they asked me all these questions about
Were they
like, and
looking at your screen as you were shooting, or was this after the fact?
this is after the fact. They got the
Okay.
photos delivered and they said, why are the lights so bright? How are you shooting? Are you doing flash ambient or are you doing HDR? Can you fix it? Right? And then like, why are your shots higher in the kitchen than in the living room? And
Wow.
I had to explain myself. And I said, and I didn't get defensive. And um, I said I shoot HDR. And honestly, that thing they called me out on the lights,
Hmm.
it was an editing thing that I just hadn't blended in more of the detail on the lights and not as much of that bright exposure for that particular, that photo so that you could see the lights, but they didn't look like a big light bloom around them. That's what they
Mm,
were critiquing, and they weren't wrong. It was
yeah.
just frustrating at the time because everybody else was fine with the way I was doing my photos, and I never had that comment before. Took me a minute to go, they're not wrong. That could be better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the next thing with the height in the kitchen, it was just their photographer that they were used to did it different. And
Hmm.
I raised up and I said the reason I raise up is because I don't like seeing underneath the cabinets because typically they're unfinished and I don't
Hmm.
think that's visually appealing. And then they went, oh, and they were fine with that. So, but if I didn't have an explanation, they would have thought I was just making it up as I went, right?
Yeah.
So, and then I can't remember now, it's been a long time ago, but there was a couple other things. There was pushback and there was questions. They were just always questioning what I was doing, I think until they finally trusted me eventually. But I will say, what came from that was I switched to Flash Ambient because of that client.
Mm-hmm.
Because, oh, that was some of the other things. They had problems with some of the colors. And that was the
Mm-hmm.
original reason why I switched. Now I kind of wished if I was editing myself at the time. And so switching to Flash Ambient was how I could fix the colors and have them be accurate. If I had the editors that I have now, they could edit HDR in a better way and they could still have colors look accurate and consistent, but I didn't know how to do that with HDR. So that's why I switched to Flash Ambient. There's I wish kind of now looking back, I didn't have to switch to Flash Ambient because it was more expensive for editors and it was a little more laborious and a little more time consuming, a little harder to train people on how to do it, but it's not the end of the world. And so now I kind of still play with the idea, I wonder if I could go back to HDR just because it's easier to train, all those things. But they helped me improve my work. I had good experience with them, figuring out how to respond kindly, and they are now my largest client. So,
Oh,
and the reason
wow.
why I didn't have to wait tables anymore.
Heck yeah. Good job, Neil. Good job.
Yeah. So,
So by being
and
patient,
I was on
bending.
the fence. I was on the fence. I almost said to them like, maybe this isn't going to work out. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah. But
That's tough.
I had to step back, take a breath, and go, are they right?
Well, it kind of beats up your ego, doesn't it? Like you're
Yeah.
kind of like, oh, I thought I was great,
Uh-huh.
like, and it
Uh-huh.
really puts you in check. It's hard to get that feedback. It
Yeah.
really is hard,
Hmm.
especially as a creative who's you've spent so much time and effort trying to learn all this and you think you've got it dialed and it's down and your stuff is the best. And then you get this feedback and you're like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah. Because
okay,
prior to that, everybody's
let's
going,
work on.
oh, your work is so beautiful. It's so much better.
Yeah.
And then they were just kind of like, why this, why that? And I was like, what? You know?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah. But
Totally.
some they were not wrong on.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah.
there you
So
go.
how did that make you feel when they were like coming back with all that?
Oh,
You said
knee
part of you
jerk.
wanted to quit or you didn't
Oh
know
yeah.
for
I
sure?
wanted to quit them as a client like instantly. It was like, oh, are these just high maintenance people?
Mm.
And sometimes they are just high maintenance people, and you got to decide if it's worth it for you or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I shifted the way I shot because I think it made sense at the time. But, you got to be careful not to do that for every little thing, right? Because there are
Right.
video people that try to push you all the time to do this other style of video and do this thing. And, oh, will you try this? And will you change your world for this one client? And sometimes that doesn't make sense for your business, for your time, for the
Hmm.
price of what you're doing, whatever it might be. There might be solutions, there might be other ways to fill that, or it might just not be a good fit, which I've had that scenario too, where I had a client that always wanted to try the new, unique thing every single time.
I remember
And I,
this
and I,
one.
and it always felt like,
Or Neil.
yeah, it was video related. And it
Yeah.
always felt like they were never really satisfied.
Mm.
I was always trying something new for them on a whim. I was investing in some new gear because they thought I needed it. And it was like, they were the only ones that, and I felt the stress every time. And
Mm.
they were the only ones doing that. And eventually I said, I think I'd be happier having, two more other clients than
Yeah.
this one client, even if they were uh, lower value. Do you know what I'm saying?
Hmm. Yeah.
And so
Totally.
that's what it came down to. I said, they wanted me to do some amazing video that they saw, and I recognized, well, I didn't actually. I sent it to I sent it down to a friend, and they said, "Oh yeah, that's so and so's work." And I was like, "Oh, do you have any idea what this kind of video would cost?" And they gave me some rates, and they're way more than what I charge and stuff. And I like asked a couple people, like, "What do you think I should do about this client that wants this video?" And they're used to me, doing it in a couple hours and stuff. And so, long story short, I sent them a nice message that said something to the effect of, I could definitely do this video. This video, I know that in order to be able to complete this video, I'm going to need the house vacant for the day. this is a very high-end video, and I'm gonna need to be there multiple times a day to capture these moments and to do it justice. And for me, that's the time I need. And I'll also need that home vacant for that whole time.
Hmm.
And it's gonna cost, I think I said $2,500 just for the video, not including other services.
Dang,
Um,
Gina.
and that was, and I was like, and I was okay though.
Mhm.
What I gave them for a proposal was what I'd be actually taking away the anxiety and the not wanting to do it. It was
Right,
like,
making it
okay,
worth your time, right?
if
Because you're
I
gonna
can be
put so
there
much
for the
in.
day, if I can basically make what I'd make on some days, 2,500 bucks for the one video, spend the day doing it, I'd be fine with it. But it would only be under the circumstances that nobody's there and I get to just do this my way. Um, and then I also added a note, plus, I do feel that some of the last times we worked together, you might not have been as satisfied as you wanted to be, and that doesn't make me feel good, and that doesn't make you feel good. So, on that note, I do also know these other people out of Boston who do a really good job as well. I take no offense if you'd like to give them a spin as well, because this is also a little bit out of my wheelhouse.
Hmm.
So, whatever way you'd like to go. And honestly, my hope was in this particular scenario, because I was getting a bad mojo, no fun feeling uh, after so many times like this, right? So my hope was honestly like, I want to part ways without, it's nothing against them. I've always liked them. They were always nice people and a whole bunch of them, and I like them. It was just like, I just don't think it's working out. So the best case scenario for me was for them to go, oh, thanks so much, appreciate it. And yeah, maybe we'll check them out. And that was like, oh, it was a sigh of relief. That's when you know,
Hmm.
when you think about it and you go, are you going to be relieved if they gracefully decide to go elsewhere? Or are you going to be bummed if they go somewhere else? If
Yeah.
you feel like you're going to be relieved, then you should probably find a way out of that relationship. And that's what happened. And I was like, oh, okay, that's it. No more texts, no more like trying to talk me into doing it. Okay, cool. We left gracefully. And she said, like, and just so you know, we've always been very happy with your work. And I said, well, thank you. I really
Uh-uh.
appreciate that. And
Yeah.
that was that. And that was that. And honestly, to me, oh, I had a
Yeah.
nightmare about them
Oh my
calling me
God.
the other day,
That's the
weeks later.
worst.
Weeks
Oh,
later, I had a nightmare about them like doing some color lights video, like all
oh
these different.
gosh.
We saw this thing and there's all these cool lights. Can you do this, Neil? And I'm like,
Oh,
oh God,
you're
I
like,
don't want
absolutely
to.
not.
I
No.
don't want to.
Oh,
Like maybe, but I don't want
that's
to.
so
You know?
funny.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
being
yeah.
haunted in
So
your dreams. Yep. That's when you know you
yeah,
got to leave a client when you start having nightmares. That means
yeah,
it's
yeah.
a bad, it's a
And
bad
it
connection.
wasn't because they weren't nice. They were always nice to me.
No, but
But
just unrealistic expectations, right? And
yeah,
it's cool to be pushed and like you have some clients who ask you, "Hey, do you think maybe you could try this?" But when it's every single time, I mean, that's
yeah.
a different story. Every once
Chasing
in a while is cool,
and
but
maybe
like chasing the
that's
trends or right?
yeah, and that could be your
Hmm.
model. That could be your model as a business that you're always going to do the newest, coolest thing and you're always going to be on the cutting edge of that. And like, if I was just doing video and that was it, maybe that
Hmm.
would be what I'd want to do.
Yeah.
But for my business, it was just stressing me out.
Yeah, totally.
And I never felt
Totally.
successful. I felt like I kind of got there halfway
Yeah. Oh,
for
I
me,
bet.
for my
Yeah.
own self. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah, there you go.
Exhausting.
How about you? You ever had a scenario that you can think of with some kind of demanding client, and how did you deal with it? Rach, can you imagine if you had to go back to a world pre-HD Photo Hub?
Oh, no way. No, HG Photo Hub literally saved my life during the COVID craze.
Yeah,
With online ordering, their invoicing, the photo delivery, the Google integration, and just having everything on one platform, HG Photo Hub really does it all. And I cannot imagine my business without it.
same. Pre-HD Photo Hub, I feel like I was just spending all my time chasing my own tail. It was horrible. The
Hmm.
good news is our listeners get a special deal. If you enter the code STS, you're going to get 10 free full marketing kit deliveries. Remember, enter the code STS.
Yeah, when I first started out, my first big top producing client, uh, I convinced them to let me do their photos because they had a big company doing their photos. I was just doing virtual tours for them forever. And then they did a bunch of new construction homes downtown Seattle. So a lot of townhomes, little modern boxes, and I think they have like 400 listings a year, but they'd sell like a whole complex, which was like 10, and I would only shoot one. So it wasn't that many listings, but they were a really good client. I mean, they did a lot of volume. So anyway, so I was very excited when they finally let me do their photos, which I had been bugging them for over a year. Like, just let me do your photos. I'll do a better job. I promise. Let me do it. And I was very forward and I kept asking, and the squeaky wheel gets the grease. They accepted me. But with that came me meeting the owner. Well, like the head broker, not the owner, but the head broker. He met me at the first shoot that I did and showed me all the angles that they wanted. He said, okay, we want one from each corner of the room, and then we want individual of the living, because it was open concept living, right? So he wanted to make sure I was getting the big picture and then more of like each individual little space. So, which is what I would have done anyway. But I was like, it's nice to have him there to help me. But he literally showed me everything that they want, which was great. It was very thorough. So that's how it kind of started. I was like, all right, this is different, but this is great. And then he got the photos back. He was happy with them. And then they had one builder that they worked for who used a very high-end photographer, and their editing was dialed. Now, this is when I was still editing my own photos, and I had not really mastered taking out the color cast out of photos. They were very kind of natural light. I mean, they were bright, but they weren't as like crisp and beautiful as my pictures now. Let's put it that way. They were a little dull. They were a little color casty. They weren't great, but the angles were good. So I had that going for me. Anyways, good enough, obviously, to get enough clients to keep going. But they had hired me to shoot this condo for this builder, and they got the photos back, and he was like, oh, the builder is not happy with the photos. And they sent me an example of the editing, and it was like bad HDR. Like, when the pictures look fake because they did such a bad job. Like,
Oh, yes.
I haven't seen this as much as I used to. Like,
Yeah.
6 years ago, 5 years ago, there was a lot of this out there. And I got it back and I was like, that is bad HDR. I was like, I don't really want my business being represented by that at all. Like, that is ugly and
So
bad.
fake.
And yes,
The
I almost let
shadows
him.
pulled up so high. There's no blacks anywhere because all the shadows are pulled up. Yeah,
Yeah, and they like do something weird with the clarity to over sharpen them so they look really weird.
super sharp. Yep.
Yeah, so I ended up.
HD.
Yeah, I found an editor and I slept on it. I was like, I don't know if I want my brand to be represented by this. This isn't really what I'm going for. So I found an editor that could do it, and he ended up not doing the bad HDR. It was like good HDR. It looked pretty darn good. So I hired him just for their jobs, and I edited everything else. And he edited all their stuff for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years before we found my current editor. But he did a darn good job. They were happy. But it was one of those moments where I'm like, this client is demanding something from me that is off brand, that I don't feel comfortable having that be representative of my work, because that's not what I like. It's not what I want. I want more natural light. I want more color cast in there. And at the end of the day, it was like, okay, this is a business. These people are feeding you, Rachel. Like, you'd be an idiot to let them go. This is too much money. And I was like, okay, I'll just bend. I'll figure it out. And I'll do it better than that company. I'm not going to settle for that crappy HDR. There's got to be good HDR, right? So this kind of opened the door for editors for me and got me to understand how necessary it is to have a team of editors to help you. Because once you're doing 3 or 4 of these a day, it's really hard to keep up with the editing and stuff. So yeah. And then it got like, that was one thing, right? And I almost lost them over this. It stressed me out. Like, it really stressed me out. And then they would come back, that same builder would just send back photos with like 500 things circled in red that needed to be photoshopped out. Like rocks, little tiny pebbles on the pathway needed to be gone. Yeah. Weeds out of the yard. Like there would be one little piece of blue tape that was left on the wall that like I had missed, just a scuff on the side of the bathtub. I mean, every little imperfection, the stickers that they left on the stove, all the things that like I kind of had overlooked at that time. They pointed them all out. And to me at the time, I was so annoyed. I'm like, oh, this builder is so annoying. But you know what? It trained me to be that much better. And I started cleaning all of my images like that. Like Jan goes crazy. Poor Jan. I'm like, Jan, you missed this, and this. Please get rid of that rock and that leaf. And he's like, girl, you're crazy. And I'm crazy because I've been trained by these builders who have very high standards. And personally, if it were my listing, I would do that for my listing. So why am I not doing that for all my clients' listings and all their photos, right? And they don't even know that we do that.
That's what I was just going to say.
No idea. It's just, they
I
just
think
know
you
that the
should do a
photos look
reel.
good.
You should do a reel about that. That literally shows Jan, fix this, fix that, fix that, fix that,
Oh,
and the caption could be something about the things you didn't even know we did, and part of why we're always better. Because they don't even
yeah.
realize, oh, I didn't, oh, that's why our photos always look a little better when we use Rachel, and we didn't realize why. Yeah, there's a lot of little things, just little things that add up.
Love that. Thank you. I just wrote that down. I
Hmm.
content
I would love
idea.
that. I would be like, oh, dang. Oh, yeah. I don't think our other guy does that for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
But you're right.
that,
They'd never know. They'd never know because it just looks nice and all they see is a nice photo.
right, right. So that client was getting a smoking deal because they'd give me such high volume and I kept them on the same pricing from like day one until, and then I grew a team and it got to the point where they were basically getting 50% off and I paid my shooters 50%. So it was like I'd literally make nothing when I had to send them out. But I worked out a deal with my shooters like, okay, the pay is going to be a little less on this because they're pretty quick and easy. If you're doing a full works on those little condos, it takes about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. It doesn't take long because they're so small and there's no yard. There's no exterior to shoot. It's just with the drone. So they're
Yeah.
really pretty simple. So anyways, it got to the point though where they didn't like the way my shooters were shooting.
Mm.
Like my shooter, one of them made a mistake and left. They put the little patio off the living room, and there was two chairs that were supposed to be on the patio, and they had brought them inside for some reason. They were sitting in the living room next to the TV on either side of the TV, and it almost looked like staging furniture in the living room. Like I would have gotten there and been like, "Is that supposed to be there or not?"
Mm. Mm.
But after looking at it, you're like, no, those probably belong out on the patio. Well, he just left them in the living room and shot it with them in the living room. And the
Right.
agent reached out and was like, hey. And a pillow was crooked, like falling over, like fell over on the couch. It just a little bit sloppy, like not acceptable to them. And I would never miss that,
Mm.
or I would take a picture and call and ask and be like, hey, is this furniture supposed to be here? I think this looks kind of weird. Right.
Right.
Or
Right.
like if I'd see an ugly plant somewhere, I'd be like, this plant's hideous. Can I just pull it? And they'd be like, yes, please.
Yeah.
That's kind of how our relationship
Yeah.
was. So they were
Yeah.
used to that really tailored, one-on-one
Mm-hmm.
attention to detail. And when I wasn't doing that and a couple of my shooters went out and didn't do same standards as I was doing, they basically let us go and hired someone else.
Mm.
And that someone else told me about that at an event. I
Oh,
didn't know that they were
wow.
using someone else. I mean, I knew, but I didn't know who.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
someone else was someone that I know in the community. And he told me
Yeah.
at an event. And my clients showed up about 5 minutes later. And I was just like, okay, I got to just like put on a smiley face and be like, oh, hi guys. How are you? So for about a year, they used someone else. And I looked at their photos and I'm like, dude, they're not even, the editing wasn't even close to as good as ours. The angles weren't even close
Mm.
to as good as ours. I'm like, seriously, come on. I'm like, it's so piddly. It's like, it felt so piddly
Well,
to me. I'm like, these
I
things.
also think that a lot of times what clients do when they know it's somebody that's not you is they nitpick even more than they would nitpick your work.
Yeah, true.
Um, that example is not that scenario, but I think there are little antennas are up. We're like, there's a
Hmm.
reason we want Rachel. Let's make sure they're doing what they should do. And like they'll nitpick way more than they would
True.
normally. Because I had a client too, the first time my shooter went out with them, that's exactly what they did. They tore him to bits. And I was like, his shots are way better than your other photographer, every single one of them. So I don't know what you're tearing apart here.
Right.
We just cost more than their other photographer. And
Hmm.
so it had to be like immaculate because of that, or they were happy with paying less for all of their shots were wrong. Like
Yeah.
literally they didn't collect correct perspective in a single shot.
Mm.
But they
Jeez.
still were going to nitpick what he did. And it was like edited way better. And it was like, oh, geez, Louise.
Yeah. I
So,
did just have another client who she'll only hire me, and she hired us for the social media reel and the virtual tour on a
mm,
different day because I she needed the photos done earlier in the week to go live, and then she was going to hire us for the reel and the Matterport or whatever to add on a couple days later. And she was hiring her other photographer to do it because I was not available, and she won't accept the team, only me. And it's like, she's had the team shoot. She said good things about it, but she still just won't do it. And so I had a cancellation in my schedule. So I called her and said, hey, I can do the shoot now if you want. I can do the whole thing on the earlier day that you want. And she, I go, I don't have to go on this trip. And she was like, okay, wonderful. So she just dropped her other photographer, canceled with them, and hired us. I'm like, This is so weird. Like,
Oh,
okay,
wow.
well, it's flattering, but it's bizarre to me how she's just very straightforward. She knows what she wants. She knows who she likes. She knows who she trusts. She also wants to look through every single photo when you're done very closely and
Mm.
critique them. And she has me go back and reshoot some angles because she has a valid point, but she doesn't wait until she gets the photo. She does it on site. And then she suggested a couple more that I do. And I'm like, okay, makes
She
sense. And
reviews your photos on site, Rachel? Is
yeah,
that what you just said?
yep. She looks through
Holy
my camera.
moly.
I was so excited because I got done at 3:45 and I was going to be able to get home before traffic hit. And I spent an extra 45 minutes looking through photos and reshooting angles that didn't work because of certain compositional reasons. And one of them, I was like,
Do you,
yeah, this is
do you?
why I didn't shoot this angle because of this and this. And she was like, oh, that makes sense now. I'm like, mm-hmm. But sometimes you have to just show her to build her trust so that she
Mm.
understands, like, I have a reason why I didn't shoot that angle. Like, it did not look good no matter what I did. You already covered the room with these two other shots. Like, you don't need a third one there.
Yeah,
But
that's a tricky client. That's almost like, huh, it's almost like, oh, yeah, we have this new service and it's called DP, the Director of Photography. It's an extra $200, but you get the opportunity to review as I shoot.
right? I
And
know
you're
for an
like, it's a
extra
new service.
Well, and an extra 45 minutes of my time. Like, and I didn't even realize it had
That's what
been
I'm saying.
45 minutes. It was
Hmm.
insane. Imagine I had another shoot after that. Like, I didn't have enough time scheduled for that. So,
Yeah.
and it was kind of a funky one because it was like, looked like it was about to start torrential downpour raining. So I had to do all the exterior photo, drone, video, Matterport, out all the exterior first, and then go through and do all the services, right? Which is just screws up my workflow. Just
Yeah.
kind of makes me and it was 3 stories, so I'm running everywhere, and there's views from every floor. So of course I have to get views out every window too. With it was
Hmm.
just a lot. It was a
Yeah.
lot. So it turned out to be a lot longer shoot than I had planned, but honestly, it's fine. It was like a 4-hour shoot instead of a 2-hour shoot, 2.5-hour shoot. But
So I've got these clients that kind of falls on this discussion. They're not demanding, but we've just started doing more fun videos where they have more parts in it and they play off each other and there's a bunch of parts they do throughout the video and we just started doing this slowly over time and now it's gotten to the point where these videos are taking way longer than a normal video.
mm-hmm.
And I've just been looking the last two we did. I'm like, oh boy, this is taking like an hour and a half longer than it should, or an
Oh
hour at
wow.
least longer than it should.
Yeah.
And so I'm going in my head, I'm tracking this for a few of these and just make so that I can eventually bring it up to him and go, I think we have to add some kind of fee for this. I love doing it. It's not that I don't want to do it, but if I had the same scenario, both of these days we did it recently, if I had another booking, I would have been late for sure. There's no
Right.
way I would have made it. So I love doing this with you, but I need to put it in the system as this add-on that my system can also calculate the extra time for, and there will be an extra fee just because it's taking more time. And you're
Mm-hmm.
getting the benefit. Their clients are loving the videos. They're excited to see them. They're getting great feedback that like they've had clients go, we want a fun video. They literally got a listing because they saw their neighbors listing and they said, we want a fun video with you guys.
That's
And
so cool.
so, it's beneficial to
It's
them. So
working. Yeah.
yeah,
So you
it's
should charge
working.
according.
And now it's
Totally.
just that tricky part of going, I know we used to only charge this, but I
Mm.
think we got to find a compromise here somewhere.
Yeah.
So I got to find a way to pull that off gracefully. But I think, having some of the information, obviously we do a couple more of these and then say, hey, look, give them an option. Like we can do a single intro and that's going to be totally standard, right? But
Mm-hmm.
as soon as we go into these, let's say maybe you can have two parts, right? You can have an intro and
Yeah.
then one part in the middle. But if we're going over that and you're going to have like two more parts, it's going to fall into this other category. So we can plan, you can pick and choose. Some houses you want the full crazy over the top, or maybe
Well,
this
and
one is fine.
it's not only the shooting time, but doesn't the editing take longer? Are you editing these too?
I'm not.
Oh, good.
The editing does take longer, and even just me writing up for the editor to explain how it's going to go. The
Mm.
one we just shot, for example, she's on the phone and she calls and she says, where are you? I can't wait till you see the listing. It's everything I said and more. And he's like, well, I just want to check. Does it have, before I head over, does it have, and he's sitting in his car, does it
Mm-hmm.
have this? And then she's in that room. Yeah, check. And does it have this? And she's in the other room.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's cute.
totally. So hi, kitty. So it's a really fun video, but we went and sat out in the car to film that, and then all these cars were stopping and checking because they thought we were in trouble because our hazards were on because there was nowhere to park
Gosh.
in the road. So then we drove down to another
No,
neighborhood to
no,
park somewhere
just making a
else.
real estate video. It's
You know
fine.
what I
Keep
mean?
driving.
And it's
Yes.
like, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it was so ridiculous.
That's great.
Literally, it's got like this old, like manly, because it was out in the woods a little bit, old
Yeah.
manly guy in a pickup truck. He's like, you guys all right? And there I'm sitting there aiming like a camera at him in the window, and he's like looking at us like, what is happening here? And he's
Mm.
like, no, it's just a video that we're doing. And the guy's like, what?
Yeah. A
It was
what?
like the look on his face was like, I
Uh,
wish I never stopped.
that's so funny. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
but
Yeah.
anyway, so yeah, so sometimes you get yourself in that. This is a scenario I got myself into because
Yeah.
I like making these fun videos like that, and it's doing good things for them. But at some point, you're like, whoa, hold on, I gotta maybe readjust here somehow. And I think they'll understand, and I'll give them options so that it's not just like you're forced into always paying more, but sometimes maybe it makes sense, sometimes maybe it doesn't.
Yeah, very true. Well, a couple things to keep in mind when you're dealing with demanding clients, because we all come across them. I mean, I've had so many that come back with just ridiculous requests. And you always want to just acknowledge what they're saying and have empathy for them, because even though you don't think it maybe is important or, something you don't want to hear, it's really important to them. Like they wouldn't have brought it up with you if it wasn't bothering them or really something that they needed fixed. So, and sometimes it takes courage for those people to bring that up with you too. It's not going to happen overnight. So just try to stay calm throughout the interaction, try to have some empathy for them, um, and engage in that active listening where you're really trying to figure out, okay, and start being proactive, like, how can I make this better for them? And then reassure them, like, okay, yeah, I totally understand that you wanted, oh, I had a client. Oh gosh, this was tough. Neal, I totally should have asked for examples of what they wanted before I went out and shot a night shoot during the day.
Uh,
This is a good example.
a night shoot during the day? What?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So I have these clients and they're like, hey, my client loves the photos, but they say that they're too bright. And I'm like, well, they're real estate photos. They're supposed to be bright. And I'm talking to her on the phone and I'm telling her, I'm like, yeah, no, I totally get that. Like they are pretty washed out and white everywhere because that's how we edit. So we can definitely, and honestly, I should have said, let me send them to my editor and we'll tone them down. But she wanted me to come back out. She thought I had to reshoot it. So she's like, can you come back out? Like, and it's just so beautiful here at night. We just want to do a shoot at nighttime with just the ambient lights on, like maybe just the lamps on so you can just see how gorgeous it is in the house. And I'm like, this is not what we do. Like, I don't know what she wants. This seems weird. And I talked her out of it. I'm like, honestly, with no natural light coming in from outside and there's no city views out the windows, like I just feel like a night shoot, let's just try shooting with the lights off. Like, I'm gonna come shoot at like towards the end of the day. We'll turn the lights off. She was like, "Okay, that sounds great." And I was like, "We'll be more like design photos, a little bit darker and moodier, more natural light coming in. We'll leave some of that yellow hue in the photos." And she was like, "Okay, great." So I go and I do lights off and shoot it, go home, edit it, send it to her. They look beautiful. My editor nailed it. I was like, "Dude, I didn't know you could edit like this. These look
Mm.
great." Right? And then she comes back and she says, I didn't do sky replacement out the windows. I just left them kind of I let the windows kind of blow out because that's the look,
Design.
right?
Yeah, that's
Right.
design.
Right. And she was like, well, now the windows are too bright and your eye just goes right to the brightest thing in the frame and that's the windows. So is there a way to darken the windows? And I'm like, can you send me an example of what you want, like what you're thinking? And she straight up sends me literally photos taken at night and they were so orange. They were awful. They were like someone took them with their cell phone. Were the examples she sent me and I was like, "Oh my gosh." So I sent them to my editor. I'm like, "This is what she wants." And he goes, "We cannot edit like that. That is impossible." And I said, "Okay, can you just put a twilight sky outside and darken it to make it look like do like the dark twilight sky, not the early twilight sky, like the late one,
Hmm.
and make it look kind of dark outside and just darken the interior a little bit more." And so he did and sent them back. And I'm like, I mean, they look fine, but they don't look good. They look fake. And she's like, "You nailed it. This is perfect, Rachel." And I'm like, thank the Lord, because seriously, I thought I'm going to have to go back again and shoot at night because there's no way we can accomplish this nighttime thing during the day. So,
Isn't that
had
funny?
I asked and been a little bit more investigative and said, "Can you please
Yeah.
send me photos of what you're thinking of?" I would have had a better visual of what she wanted. So, and I was like pulling my hair out the whole time I was shooting because I was so annoyed with them because the photos look freaking amazing.
Mm,
It's real estate owner and
hmm
it's the homeowner, it's the seller that's saying this. So
Yeah.
it's almost the client's job to also inform the sellers like, hey, these are real estate photos and they show it, how bright it is. But they were really bent on the fact that they wanted to show that natural light. So
hmm
we accomplished that.
I had a Twilight one like that. So we started offering art, did artificial Twilight
Hmm.
conversions, right? Mostly just because I don't love doing Twilight. It because of what it does for my life. And to me, I'd rather not make as much money most of the time to not do one,
Yeah.
um, unless they're gonna do like a full-blown package with it, not just like we want regular photos and Twilight, and it's like, ugh. You know what I mean? So I said, we have a cheaper offering. I'm basically undercutting my sales here to not do Twilight. We have a cheaper offering to do virtual Twilights. $50. We'll give you three Twilights. Oh, really?
Hmm.
And so I gave them to them, and they're like, yeah, these are just they don't have the same look as your real Twilight, with the. And here's the thing, they're not photographers, our clients most of the time, and most of the times they do not communicate or don't even know how to communicate what it is they like. A lot of times I've had people show me an example of something and I saw it. This isn't for them, but like a video. I saw somebody sent me an example. The video had was edited to be real style from a regular video,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So it was landscape originally. I know that they edited it because they had like three parts on screen, right? And but the thing about it was this new trending, the FPV look where it floats in and out of shots and
Oh,
turn
yes.
tilts and turns as it goes and stuff.
Hmm.
So I killed myself to do this style for them of this reel, right? And I sent it to them and edited vertically so it filled the whole frame, right?
Hmm.
And they said, "Oh, yeah, that's nice, but we really wanted the like three sections of the video." So they didn't want the FPV style. They
Oh,
just wanted
gosh.
landscape in three shots on the vertical.
Oh my gosh. So like
So I did
three
not have to
different shots
go,
on one
mhm,
screen, right?
mhm.
Like
I did
stacked.
not
Yeah.
have to learn this whole
Oh
FPV
boy.
movement and kill myself doing all the shots. They just wanted it that I could have shot the regular way. They just wanted it three divisions, but they
Yep.
didn't know how to explain. They didn't even know why it was they liked the video. They just liked this video,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And so be aware of that. Get more details and don't make assumptions on when you see something that they tell you is what they want. And so back to the Twilight people, it's not like your Twilight. It doesn't have the same glow that you have. And I said, well, what is it that you like so much about the real Twilight? Because I had my own thoughts in my head. I'm assuming what they're going to say. Well, when you do your real ones, the light is a warm color coming out, and this was like a cooler, more yellowish color. I said, so if I made the light a warmer glow, you might like that. I don't know, show us. I literally changed. I just told the editor, make it a warmer light coming through the windows, and they're like, "Oh my God, these are beautiful."
Oh boy.
And
Good.
I'm
See?
like,
Fixed it.
that's it. That's
That's it.
it. And went
Yeah.
from these are garbage.
Right.
We never gonna do this service again. We need your real Twilight. To oh my gosh, you guys are really nailing it on your Twilights. These are all coming out so beautiful now.
It's
So
crazy. It's crazy. The
there,
little
there
things.
you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Same situation, right? Like just changing a sky out made them perfect. And I'm like, who knew?
Yeah,
Yep. It's amazing.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you also have to think about there's a lot of clients who are demanding of your time and what day of the week they want you to shoot,
Mhm.
especially for us in Seattle with the weather. They're like,
Yes.
oh, it's gonna be beautiful and sunshiny on Sunday. And I used to, before I had a team, before I had boundaries, I'd be like, okay, I'll find a babysitter and I'll go shoot on
hmm
Sunday and I'll make it happen just for this client. But, and yes, if you can't do it and you tell them no, they're probably going to go somewhere else. And that's part of the stress on us as real estate photographers to bend over backwards to please these people. But you have to have boundaries and like there's a time and a place to have boundaries.
Yeah.
And I've found that the more honest you are with people, just saying, you know what, I really can't do that day. I've got prior engagements, unfortunately, but the team can do it.
Yeah.
Or we're all full that day. Can you do the day before, the day after? Just instead of killing yourself and adding one more that's going to totally stress you out. It's not,
Yeah.
the money is not worth it. I obviously keeping the clients important, but there's some clients who have a little unrealistic expectations of your time.
And if you have cojones,
Mhm.
so a little bit, not that I have a lot or anything, but I will say that if you're not afraid to recommend somebody else in a scenario where you really just can't do it,
Mhm.
maybe you have someone in town that you like and you get along with and isn't a thief of your business. I've been chatting with somebody in town here who does work with the Keller Williams office. He's a really nice guy and everything. So I just recently had a client reach out and put the pressure on me like, Neal, I love your work. It has to be you, but it's got to be this day. And my
Mhm.
first reaction is looking at that day going, all right, how can I make this work? I have that appointment. I really wanted to be on this meeting call for the summer camp that I help with out with, but I'm like, I don't have to be on that call. I guess I could move that, and
Mhm.
then I could fit her in on that day. But I said, no, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that because
Yep.
I want to be on that call, and this is letting her push me around. I know that it doesn't have to be that day. That would be the best day. And I'm like, this is unfair to me and it's taking over my life, right? So I said, wait, hold on. I have a new shooter, Zach, and he can do it. Now, it also was, we were just training him on video and she wanted video and everything like that. And I just figured, you know what? This is going to be trial by fire. I'm going to do a couple extra trainings with him. He's going to know he has to do it. So he's going to force him to have to pick it up because he's going to do it. So she said, but he's not you. And she said, well, is he you? And I said, hey, I wouldn't have hired him. He wouldn't be on my team if he wasn't representative of what we stand for. So yes, I stand by him. And so she said, okay, I'll use him instead. So went with him, but I have to tell you, she is more demanding. She's
Mhm.
super nice. She's very nice. But I do remember when I did a shoot, she recommended a couple shots I would do, and okay, and I did those shots, and a couple of them I liked. So I was like, whatever. Um, but I guess when Zach went, she definitely gave him like a shot list when he came in, like you do this, do that, because I think partly they're on guard, like somebody new, is he gonna be good enough and all that. So that's a part of it. I was proud that I didn't get pushed around and then actually worked into a positive that Zach got booked on his first video shoot and we did extra training and he really took it up a notch and the shots came out looking beautiful. But
Mhm.
she was not done. So there was a scenario where we've had a lot of gusts lately. So we talked to her and said, hey, here's the scenario. We're going to do the shoot, but the video is going to be delayed because he's going to do the exteriors and the drone video on a separate day because it's too gusty outside, so we can't do the outside. So, but then we started getting all this pushback, like the night that the photos were delivered, started with her going, my clients sent me these photos from spring. They need these right away. Can you edit these now for me? They need to be cropped to fit MLS and it was like this urgent has to be now. And this is nothing that we did. This is your
Mhm.
client handed you some spring photos that are all wonky and don't fit MLS. And it was 6 o'clock at night. I'm like, I'm doing other things. I
I'm
shouldn't have to,
eating dinner with my family.
right? And whatever it is, it's like, that's not my fault that you need this right this second. And so
Yeah.
I told her, and I could have gone and done it right away, but I
Mhm.
felt like this is just like an unfair leverage on me for this. And I said,
Yeah.
and she's like, I said, I can't right now. I'm actually doing something. I'm out, but when I'm
Mhm.
back a little later tonight, I will do it. Just almost as like setting a standard that like it's not going to be, I'm not going to just every second turn and do what you want to do. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
Because I know it's going to turn into that. It's just going to continue and get
Mhm.
worse every time I do that, just
Yeah.
from experience with working with other demanding clients. Well, then her response is, well, can Zach do it?
Oh gosh.
And she
Like, no.
included him on
Oh
a
goodness.
text because she
She's
had got,
desperate. I'd be
yeah.
like, Google it. You can Google how to change the size
hmm
for MLS.
And no, and so what I said was,
Oh boy.
actually, and I told her facts. I said, this is a scenario. Zach actually doesn't handle any of the editing. We
Mhm.
have editors that handle all of our editing to make sure it is consistent. Also, our editors work overnight, so they're not actually up yet. So this is normally going to be something that would be a next day change. But
Mhm.
it's a simple thing that I can actually do and I will handle later tonight if you're okay with that. But it's not something that Zach would handle. So I set that
Mhm.
expectation and I made sure that Zach also knew prior to this that these kinds of things you forward to me, because she had reached out to him first and he forwarded and said, oh, I don't handle these kinds of things. I just go and shoot. So you need to reach out to Neal to answer any kind of questions. So that takes the pressure off him. Any crazy question, he just goes, oh, I don't know, but Neal will know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To kind of take that off of them, because that's where you're also going to have a variable of wrong answers that are just going to get you in deeper water. So I always just tell them, hey, it doesn't matter if you know the answer to the question, you send it to me. You know, if it's
Yeah.
something to do with you showing up to do the shoot, that's fine. But anything after that, all you do is the photography. After that, we handle it. But yeah, she was going to push back all day on all these weird, funky things. And she just kept going with these things. And I kept having to go finesse, like, here's our timeline. And then next thing was video. When's the video going to be done? Well, we did the drone. So it's 2-day turnaround for the drone. So it's going to be 2 days from when we get the drone footage. So, and well, we need it. And I need a video. Yeah, I totally understand. But, you know, there's a marketing kit. If you want to use something right away, you could do something like that. But you're definitely going to get your video in 2 days. You know, and I just had to be firm. And eventually it was like, it was all moot points. It wasn't a big deal, but she was, whatever environment she was in was stressing her out and making it all seem super critical. And I just said, you know, most people, this is nothing new. They wait until they get the video and they post it. If they can't wait, they just post the photos. Nobody ever died.
Yeah.
You're going to be good.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I know I had one that was upset. The photos weren't perfect how she had expected. And it was kind of the house needed painted. It was really dingy and dirty looking and everything's dead. I sent you this one, Neal. I'm like, how could I fix this? And you're like, more contrast. So I added the contrast, added a different sky, and it looked better. And I uploaded the photos for her and said, here you go. And she said, oh, unfortunately, it's already on the MLS. It's too late. And I'm like, and before when I was asking her, she said a couple of she said, well, the inside shots just look too bright. And the outside, I don't know why, it just looks dull. It's off. And I was like, okay, and I emailed back, can you specify which ones on the inside you think are too bright? Because to me, they all looked fine. I'm like, there was one bathroom pic that was too bright. I'm like, these look, I don't know what she's talking about. You know, the outside exterior, I got it. And she never replied back to my email. And then when I finally got it fixed, which was like later that afternoon, she's like, it's too late. And it just hurt me. It like hurt my soul. I'm like, maybe it's too late. You can replace the photos on the MLS anytime. I'm like, I'm wondering if she has a somebody that does that for her and she doesn't know how. You know, maybe she has a transaction coordinator or a person on her team that uploads that and she doesn't actually know how to do that. Because if you're that frustrated, and she was like, it's just not the fantastic, you know, flawless, perfect photos that I expect from your team, from you guys, and da da da. And I'm like, I'm sorry that it wasn't right by noon, and I did everything I could to fix it, and I tried my hardest to make it right for you, and then she wouldn't accept it, which is just frustrating. I was like, dang it. But it's like I do everything I can to make it better. I'm like, what else can I do? You know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Sometimes you take
and I even wrote in the email, I'm like, you can always just upload these ones onto the MLS. Like, I don't know why you're saying that. That's weird.
I think you're absolutely right that a lot of them, some of them I do know, have never uploaded to MLS.
Oh,
I
really?
worked
Yeah.
with a seasoned realtor who was from another state, and she had a different team, and apparently her old team handled all of that.
Okay.
She
I
had
bet
no
that's it.
idea how to get the photos onto MLS, called me freaking out, and I forget now, but it was like, what? She's like, I hit download, and then all I see are these things with numbers. What is this? I'm
Oh,
like,
boy.
you're looking at the files. What do you mean, what is this? She didn't, like, she had never, I'm like, yeah, I was like, yeah, so you just need to open the folder and you'll just copy those and then you'll paste them into MLS. Well, I don't know how to do any of this kind of. She was like so upset and so
Yeah.
mad, and I'm like, and this wasn't my fault. It was
Right.
just that she had an admin team that used to do all this for her. So I said, you need to go into the office. I know that the people in the office that you work with do this all the time and they know how to do it. So I would recommend you go in there because I've never done it. I can't help you with how to get it on MLS. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not looking at your screen.
I don't know how to do that.
It was totally like, yeah, she didn't understand a folder, like anything.
Yeah.
Computer.
I've
I
had
was
a
like,
couple like that. And you have to
what?
explain like how to download a photo. So, well, now they're downloaded. Now what? And I'm like, oh boy. I'm like, they're in your downloads folder. Like, okay.
Oh, she's
But
like,
it's all
what's
about
what's
I have
a
empathy for
ZIP
them.
folder? That was
Right?
it.
I'm like,
What's
oh.
a ZIP folder? I'm like, oh my God.
But it's all about having empathy, right? Hearing them,
Yep.
listening to them, be an active listener. Try to just stay calm, take a deep breath. It's really not the end of the world. We're not like, delivering babies
Yeah.
here. We're delivering photos. So just remember, I worked in retail and I remember my old manager said that to me. She goes, "It's not like we're doing brain surgery. We're selling clothing. Like, lighten up. It's
We're
fine. It's
not gonna
gonna be
die.
okay." And I was
Yeah.
like, "Gosh, isn't that true? Like, we're not doing brain surgery here. We're just taking real estate photos." Like,
And it is
but
important to understand too that yeah, you don't know what else just happened prior to them getting the
right,
photos and freaking out that's
right.
affecting them. And in this scenario, I think her client, like the lady was all over us about every single thing. I think her clients were like just amplifying her because they were
Mm,
being overreacting about timeline and stuff. Because
yeah,
I don't know, but it was yeah, it is something to consider when
I've
somebody's
heard that.
freaking out.
I've heard that from a lot of brokers that like they'll openly admit, like, just so you know, this client is dang near impossible to please, and they fired their last broker, and now they're giving me a shot. So I know one of my clients said that to me last week. He's like, or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
He's like, I am 100% happy with the speed walkthrough you did, but they think here's their feedback. And I was like, let's make a teaser video. He was like, this is so jarring and it makes me dizzy.
mm,
Why would anybody want to watch this video? This is absolutely terrible. I can't
right.
believe this is what you sent. I'm like, and my client's like, I love these. And I go, let's make him a teaser video and we'll put it
Yep.
to like classical music. And he was
Uh-huh.
like, perfect. I can't wait to
Yeah.
show him.
Exactly.
And
Yeah,
he was
because they
happy.
don't.
So,
Yeah, because they're not on social
yeah.
media. A lot of people they're not on
Right.
social media. They don't know what's happening, and so yeah, it is.
Yeah,
It is a jarring, ridiculous video that we do now. I mean, compared to what it
it
was 10
is.
years ago, it's totally like if 20 years ago somebody handed that video to anybody who did video, they'd be like, "That is garbage.
Like, what is that?
This is
Yeah,
horrible. I don't even know what." Yeah, it's just the style, right?
exactly. Exactly.
Oh my God, so
All right.
funny.
So have patience, listen, have empathy, and just take care of your people. Your client's always right. So make sure you remember that
Yeah,
when you get into these demanding situations, but also set your boundaries because
set your boundaries,
sometimes you got to fire people that you just can't work with, and that's
because you
okay.
have priorities too, and you have your things that
Yeah,
you need to accomplish as well. So it's not fair to, give that up for everybody else's priorities.
exactly. Exactly. All
Cool.
right. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys.
Okay, okay. We'll see you on the next one.
See ya.